the municipal recycling coordinators across Massachusetts. It's really great to have so many attendees on the call today. We have over 100, and I hope you're all faring well during these challenging times. It has been a very strange spring and summer for all of us, but it's glad to be back. It's great to be back again together. My name is Kathy Merzer, for those who don't know me, and I'm the Municipal Assistance Coordinator, or MAC, for a district of 44 cities and towns in southeastern Mass. Today, I'm going to be facilitating the meeting with Todd Kep and Janice Perret, two of my fellow MACs, but we also have quite a few folks from our team behind the scenes helping to make this happen. Thank you for joining us for this virtual discussion. Todd and I had originally planned this meeting in person to take place in March, literally a day before we had to shut everything down. So needless to say, we had to pivot and reschedule. And so over the summer, the MACs chatted about this and decided that we could work together and make this a statewide discussion. So this is our first time giving the Zoom format a try for one of these MRC meetings. So we ask for your patience as we give this a go. As you know, today we're going to focus our discussion on residential organics collection, and we are really happy to have speakers from 3 different municipalities to talk about their drop-off or curbside food scrap collection programs. We also have an update on backyard composting and grants with our very own Ann McGovern from Mass DEP. We will save some time later in the meeting for an open discussion with attendees to share from some of our experiences and ask questions. And then for those who want to meet with their MAC district to discuss more local issues, we ask you to stay on for an additional 30 minutes at the end of the meeting after it closes, because we're going to have breakout rooms by MAC district. So it's going to give us all the opportunity to get together with folks that we know and work with and speak about issues that might be regional in nature. So I have a few introductions to get started, a little bit of housekeeping. This meeting will be recorded and it will be made available to all the attendees. Everyone will be in mute mode during the presentations, but there will be time for Q&A after each presentation. If you have a question or comment, and we certainly hope you have lots of questions and comments, please use the chat box. With so many on today, that's going to be our best tool for facilitating this communication back and forth. And you'll see that icon at the bottom of your screen that says chat. If you open that up, you can put in a question or comment. And you'll have a choice as to who that goes to in the chat box. We recommend that you send it to everyone, so that others with experience can chime in and perhaps offer some feedback or upload links with relevant information. So normally at this point in our MRC meetings, we would do introductions and go around the room, but because we have so many folks on the call today, we're going to use a quick poll in place of introductions so that we can see who's on. So I'm going to ask Todd to launch the first poll today. So if you'd please take a moment and just tell us who you are. I think we're almost there. We've got about 72 people, 75% have responded. So we'll give just a couple more seconds so we can see, but clearly, it looks like the majority are municipal officials and staff. We have some folks from the state, some volunteers, some nonprofits, some processors, haulers, and a few others as well. Okay, so we have a nice cross-section of folks here. Thank you very much, so others can see who's on this discussion. And if you'd like to close out that box, you will want to click the X in the top right corner of the poll, so that will close it off of your screen. I also have a few updates from Mass DEP that I wanted to share with you today regarding the Sustainable Materials Recovery Program grant. Just so you know, the recommendation package is with the Commissioner's Office, and the award notifications this year are going to be sent out by email. So stay tuned and stay on the lookout for our first round of grant awards that will include RDP, which is the Recycling Dividends Program, as well as small scale grants. So hope to see those coming out very soon. We also want to remind everyone about technical assistance grants that are available to provide up to 80 hours of MAC time for a dedicated project for your community. Municipalities can apply for these TA grants all year round, and please be sure to speak with your MAC first to discuss those ideas and to assist with the application process. Thank you, Todd, for pulling up this first slide. So I wanted to announce that the Mass Recycle Conference is coming up next month. I encourage all of you to attend. It's a fantastic conference, and it's all going to be done online this year, October 28th and 29th. The registration is now open on Mass Recycle's website. And this conference is going to be looking at waste capacity issues in Massachusetts with a focus on extended producer responsibility, reuse, and organics as tools to reduce waste. They will also host some roundtable discussions on hot topics for recycling coordinators. So please plan to attend that. It should be great. Also coming soon from Mass DEP, I wanted to just put this on the radar that we have a webinar series coming up for America Recycles Day this fall. We will have a webinar about school recycling. We will have one about municipal policies to buy recycled content products. And we will also have a workshop about municipal contracting. And that will focus pretty explicitly on recyclables processing as well as materials audits. So that's one you do not want to miss. So watch for details and announcements in the coming weeks for all three of these. So now we're going to switch gears to the main topic of the day, and that's the diversion of residential organics. So I have just a couple of slides to introduce this topic and set the context for our discussion. So if we could go to the next slide, please, Todd. So first, I just wanted to define organics for you and how we're going to use this in the conversation today. So organics is a specific category in Mass DEP's waste characterization studies. And those are conducted every 3 years. And what they do is they look at what we still dispose of as trash in Massachusetts. The umbrella term organics in this study actually includes 5 different waste streams. They break it down by food waste, by leaves, grass, and trimming, branches and stumps, manures, and other composite organics, which are not compostable. Today, we're going to really be focusing primarily on the food waste component of the organics waste stream with special focus on the residential stream. Next slide. So when DEP looks at what types of materials are disposed as trash, this chart from our 2019 waste characterization studies conducted at our 6 largest waste combustors in the state shows that about 28% of what we dispose is organics. And that comprises the largest amount of any single waste stream disposed as trash in Massachusetts. Food waste makes up the majority of this organic stream. So we clearly have a lot of room for improvement. And as many of you know, the Commonwealth implemented a strategy in 2014 to really start tackling food waste through the commercial organics disposal ban, and that was targeting large generators of food waste. And it's had great results. It's led to a lot of food rescue for fresh and perishable foods. It's helped to establish new and expanded processing capacity, whether it's anaerobic digestion or composting. And we've seen more and more businesses come online for food waste collection. Next slide, Todd. So in our next solid waste master plan that's being finalized soon, we're really focusing some more attention at small businesses and residential sources of food waste as well. And some of our goals are listed here. They have to do with reducing food waste, developing more on-site or home composting programs, developing community and drop-off programs, and doing our best to identify these efficient models for curbside food waste collection. And you're going to hear about some of these today. Next slide. So we also need to just be mindful and just take a moment and think about the capacity constraints that we have here in Massachusetts as well, because this chart reflects the diminishing capacity for trash disposal, but it's coupled with increasing capacity for organics processing. And the organics processing options are along the top section there. So it really behooves us to get the food waste out of the trash stream to the best of our ability so that we can lessen our need for additional disposal capacity. We really want to direct this food waste to higher value uses rather than burying or burning it. And some of the great qualities about the food waste processing available to us is that it happens locally, it creates jobs here, it really reduces greenhouse gas impacts, it supports local businesses and farms. And so for all these reasons, that's why we're giving our attention today to food waste generated by residents. So I'd like to ask Todd to launch the next poll, which asks about the food waste diversion programs in your communities. So if you could just take a moment, and you can check all that apply because you may have more than one of these operating. So just take a moment and read through, and we love to hear about what you're doing. Looks like we're about halfway there in terms of folks who have selected something, so we'll give it just a couple more seconds. Okay, if we could share the results of this poll. Terrific. So we can see that we've got a decent amount, about a third of those responding have curbside collection. Nearly 30% have drop off. We've got almost half with home compost bin programs, fantastic. And there's still a percentage of you with no collection at this time. So thank you folks for responding to that. It's great to know who has experience with these programs, and we really encourage your participation as the discussion unfolds today. Remember that if you want to close this on your screen, there's an X in the top right corner of the results, and then you can close that out. So what I'd like to do next is introduce our first speaker. We are really fortunate to have some great examples of municipal collection programs to share today. First up, we're going to look at the drop-off program at Wellesley's transfer station. We have Jamie Manzolini here. He has worked in the town of Wellesley's engineering division before transitioning to the position of superintendent for the town's very well-known recycling and disposal facility. This disposal facility is a source-separated transfer station. They have 14 full-time employees. And they process 7,500 tons of solid waste and about 5,500 tons of recyclable materials annually. So Jamie, I will hand the floor over to you. And just a reminder for attendees to please use the chat box for questions so that we can discuss those after the presentations.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for having me and giving me the opportunity to let you know kind of what Wellesley's been doing with their food waste collection. Yeah, just for people that don't know, Wellesley is 2 towns west of Boston, so it's just Metro West, right kind of in the middle of the state. We service, roughly 9,000 households and 30,000 residents. So that kind of gives you an idea of where we are and how big we are. As mentioned, we do operate a source separated transfer station. So what that means is all of the material that's generated in the town is brought to our transfer station, and from there it is separated and dealt with accordingly. So, food waste is just another one of our streams. So if we go to the next slide, and then that's just the information. So we can go to the next slide after that. So this is just sort of a picture of, what our drop-off area looks like. Those are 2 3-yard containers and then toters next to that, where residents can drive up and place the food waste in those containers. From there, we collect all of the containers once a week and drive them into Charlestown to save that stuff, the anaerobic digester there. We're always in the process of trying to clean up the material. And by clean up, the contaminants we're seeing in the material are plastic bags, cardboard, basically the containers that the food is in. Ideally, we'd love to see just the food in those bins. And if we do see them in a bag, we'd love to see them in a compostable bag. The cleaner we can get the material, the more options and the cheaper the options are that we have to dispose of the material. So that's just kind of our main food waste collection area, like I said, with the 2 3-yard containers. And then we also have some toters at all the compactors. If we go to the next slide. So this next slide shows the toters at every compactor. So there are 5 compactors for MSW in the facility, and at each one there are food waste toters like this. So you can get rid of your food waste here, and then your trash right next to it. And this is kind of the signage we have on the toters, so the residents know that this is for food waste only. You know, each one is labeled with food waste, and then there's a pretty detailed description of what's accepted and what's not accepted behind the toters. And if you go to the next slide, you may be able to see that's just kind of a close-up of the signage of what's accepted and what's not accepted. And what's accepted is basically all food waste and you know, coffee filters and coffee grinds and stuff like that. And what's not accepted is you know, bottles and plastic and stuff like that. And so, like I said, we just let that collect for a week, and then on Tuesday we load up all of the food into a packer body hook lift truck, and the next morning we drive it into Boston. So on the next slide we'll see a picture of the type of truck we use. On the left there is a hook lift truck with a packer body. And a question that we get quite often is, what do we do with the liquid that's in the food waste? You know, if you're going over the road, doesn't it make quite a mess on the road? And it seems like every time I talk about this, how we do it, that question comes up. So how we deal with that is, like I said, we collect all of the food waste on Tuesday. And then the picture on the right there actually shows the body of the packer body lifted up a little bit with the door open on our trash tipping floor. So that you can see all the liquid that kind of drains out. So we let it drain out like that overnight. And then hopefully by the next morning, there's not much leaking out, and we can drive it over the road without creating quite a mess. And that's kind of our operation. You know, we have signage and toters right next to all of our trash compactors, and you know, residents can place their food waste in those toters. Hopefully, you know, by itself. If it's in a bag, it's in a compostable bag. And we're always trying to educate the residents as to clean up. And keep the contamination low, and to try to you know, put as much food waste as they can. You know, take it out of the trash and put it into the food waste stream. So that's pretty much our program over here at Wellesley.
Thank you, Jamie. Janice, do we have any questions in the chat box?
We do. So Sean Anderson wanted to know, do you have volunteers or your own guys that to do this work? And then a secondary question a couple people asked is how do you pay for it? Was it via a grant, or what's the funding model?
I apologize for not mentioning that. Yes, of course, we got the program off the ground, you know, through RDP and grant funds, you know, for toters and signage and stuff like that. we did use grant money to kind of start the program. And what was the other question? I apologize.
Is it your own guys that that do it, or is it volunteers? And there are a couple of others, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's our own staff that does it. It's it's a team effort to kind of load up all the toters, and then one guy drives it in on Wednesday morning.
Another question was, could you give an approximate program cost for labor, equipment, tip fee?
I don't have those numbers right off the top of my head. So I'm not sure. I mean, the truck that we use for this is used for other programs around town, is mostly our recycling program, and stuff. So, I couldn't really spitball a cost specifically for this program, because we do kind of intermingle a lot of tasks and manpower throughout the day.
How many households are participating in this program?
Sure, that's a great question. So the pilot program, about 300 households signed up, and we're estimating that it's probably around 500, but it's really kind of tough to say for sure. We had the pilot program, and then it kind of grew from there, and then we had a volunteer effort lined up this spring to really spread the word and to educate residents to the program and hopefully boost participation. But it's without having like a subscription model, it's really tough to know exactly how many households are participating. But we do send in about between 1 and 2 tons a week, roughly 80 tons a year of food waste. And that's been sort of consistent. I mean, it does fluctuate, but it has been pretty consistent.
I don't know how much time we have left, but there's another question I thought was important. Any pest or rodent issues with the open carts, added cleanup from pest issues?
Surprisingly not. We've had pest and rodent issues for other streams of recycling. Surprisingly, with the food waste, we're not seeing that much. Flies, yes, but rodents and pests, not so much. No, it is something that we, rotate every week and keep clean every week. So, I'm sure that helps.
I don't know. Do we have enough time for one more, Kathy?
Yeah, Janice, we actually have maybe 3 or 4 minutes, so we have time for a few more questions. Thank you.
Where do you drop the food waste off in Boston, and what happens to it there? And then also, if it's turned into compost, do residents have access to that?
Great question. So right now we're sending it in to save that stuff. We have sent a few loads to Vanguard Renewables out in Spencer, Mass, which would be a better option for us, I feel, because the byproducts stay right there on the farm, as opposed to going elsewhere. So right now we're sending it to save that stuff. We're working pretty hard to clean it up, and so we would be able to send it to Vanguard's, which would be a better option for us, both with how it's processed and cost. And so none of our food waste is really used for compost. We do have a compost program here, but none of our food waste is mixed in or mingled with that process.
So Vanguard is an anaerobic digester?
It is an anaerobic digester as well, yes.
Okay, and then a question, do you transport the totes or empty them into 2 cubic yard container or another container for transportation?
Yeah, we would take the totes and put them into the back of the packer body. So the packer body would lift up the totes and dump it in there. It also lifts up the 2-yard or 3-yard containers. So we load all of the food waste into the packer body and transport it that way.
There was a question, I think you didn't have this off the top of your head, but do you know what the tip fee at the core facility is?
Oh, sure. The tip fee in Boston is $65 a ton. The tip fee at the digester in Spencer, Mass is $30 a ton.
Okay, and then I have one. Are residents provided with any type of receptacle to collect it? For example, kitchen scrap buckets, pails, bags?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then,
they were provided all of that stuff. You know, the pilot program through the grant funds. They were provided all of that stuff: kitchen, garage receptacles, kitchen receptacles, bags. But as of right now, they are not. I mean, we give them information of where to get that, and you know, work with our local hardware store to provide that. But we don't offer it through the facility.
and then you also mentioned compostable bags, and this person wants to know, is there a required standard for the bags? How does one know which one to use?
No, there's not a required standard for the bags. I mean, if it's labeled as a compostable bag, that would be good enough for us. I mean, it's better than the plastic or the paper bags.
Okay, I think we got to all of them.
Great. And just, I think before we close that, I think, please correct me if I'm wrong, Jamie, is it because the bag is separated at the facility and so a certain standard of bag might not be required?
Exactly. The bags don't break down as fast or at all at the facility in Spencer, Mass. at Vanguard Renewables. In Charlestown, they have a depackager, so they separate those out before they go into the process. So that's the reason that we'd like to try to clean up and get rid of the plastic bags.
Terrific. Thank you very much. That was an excellent presentation. Thank you.
Sure.
So I think we covered all the questions as well, and our timing is great. So we are going to now switch gears a tiny bit and look at home composting. So I'm going to ask Todd to please launch the next poll, which is about how your community promotes home composting. And you can check all that apply, because certainly there may be several of these offerings that you may do in your community. So we'll wait just another moment. We're about 2/3 of the folks have voted already. Okay. I think you can close this poll anytime, Todd, and then folks can see what the results are for what we have. So it looks like selling compost bins at a discounted price, and that your municipal website has those home composting resources and links, got the most number of tallies, which is more than half of the attendees today. Fantastic. Some offer bins at a cost, some offer them for free or for donation. Nearly 1/3 of you have kitchen scrap buckets, and some promote homemade compost bins, and about 1/4 of you are not promoting home composting at this time. Okay, well, this is really helpful to have. Thank you so much for answering that poll. We're going to take a few minutes now to refresh ourselves on backyard composting resources, as well as DEP's grants that support residential organics diversion programs. So I'm going to hand the floor over to Ann McGovern from Mass DEP. And remember, please put your questions into the chat box as we go.
Hello, everybody. It is wonderful to see all of you here today, even though we're not in the same room. It's nice we're on the same webinar. It's great to know that you're all here. And I just wanted to let you know how much all your work is appreciated. As far as I'm concerned, everyone on this webinar represents the cream of the crop of the organics diversion effort in Massachusetts, and great job. It's much appreciated. All right, so I just want to talk about the value of home composting as a sustainable, zero waste way of life. And if I can get my slides to advance, that would be great. Why compost? Many of you already know all these things, but I'll review quickly. It reduces the amount of waste requiring disposal. It can reduce greenhouse gas emissions compared to landfilling, as well as sequester carbon in the soil in the form of humus. It recycles nutrients and organic matter for plants, so creates healthier soil. And it can save money in avoided disposal costs and also in reduced purchases of soil amendments and fertilizers. What can be composted? Anything that was once alive, and that includes food waste, paper and paper products, yard waste, such as leaves, pine needles, grass clippings, prunings, wood chips, and even sawdust, animal manure, seaweed, and the list goes on. But exactly which organic materials are composted depends on what composting system is being used. How many ways are there to compost? Countless, really. There's on-site methods in bins, even trash cans, buckets, worm bins, and piles. Municipal and on-farm methods in windrows, piles, or drums. Commercial systems, usually in enclosed containment vessels. Aerobically, which means with oxygen, which results in carbon dioxide and humus. And then the anaerobic type of decomposition, which produces methane and happens inside our stomachs. If you wonder what anaerobic digestion is, you do it 24/7 for free. Who can compost? Everyone, at work, at home, at school, at play, on the farm, in the basement, on the porch, in the woods, in the garden. Why not? Really, it's an easy activity and it's actually fun. So what can be composted at home? Most organic household waste, including vegetative food scraps, eggshells, coffee grounds, tea bags, etc. Yard waste, such as leaves, grass clippings, prunings, weeds, pine needles, brush, etc. Compostable paper, which includes waxed paper, as well as paper towels, napkins, plates, bakery tissues, tea bags, coffee filters, newspaper and paper bags, etc. Corrugated cardboard, including waxed coatings, because the wax will actually decompose. Animal manure and bedding, which we recommend you restrict to herbivorous animals, that is, animals that don't eat meat, because their manure tends to be less pathogenic. In other words, the majority of our organic household waste can actually be composted at home. What organic waste should not be composted at home? Meat and dairy products, and that will minimize, by leaving that out of your home compost system, that will minimize odors and pests. Dog, cat, and human waste, that will minimize pathogens. Invasive plants, you can dispose of those as trash because they're not considered suitable for composting because they can spread. Poison ivy is also not considered suitable for composting, and that can be disposed as household trash. So even though there's a ban on yard waste disposal, there is an exception for yard waste that is not suitable to be composted, and that basically includes invasive plants and poison ivy. So how much compostable material it shows up in the organics waste stream? As Kathy talked about earlier, this is basically the same pie chart she had, but with a breakdown of the organic material. This is what's in the trash in Massachusetts as of 2019, the waste characterization studies. And what I've done here is shown the components that are contained within this 28% organic material. And it consists of 21.5% food waste. The remainder of the composite organic material, which isn't really compostable in practice, is close to 4%. So you really need to subtract that out of this organic material category. Add the leaves and grass, only 2.5% of our waste stream is yard waste, which is great because it's banned from disposal. So it's nice that we're not seeing very much of it going into the trash. That's good. And the manure and stumps are also less than 0.5% each. So when you take the organic matter total and subtract out the type that's mixed with other materials and can't be composted, you end up with about 24%. However, there is more, actually. In this pie chart, this shows each category of material as a summary, but also in the waste characterization, there's detailed breakdowns within each category. So this is the detailed breakdown for organic matter material. In the paper category, turns out that 8.7% of our waste stream currently disposed consists of compostable paper. So that would be napkins and tissues and paper towels and so forth, wax paper, and so on. So when you add that with the food waste and the remaining yard waste that's still showing up, we actually get about 33% of the waste stream that can realistically be composted. So that's the number that I will use as a total of what can be composted out of our waste stream. So let's get personal. What do those pie charts mean for us as individuals? And what can one person do? Well, in 2018, the mass population was almost 7 million, and we disposed approximately 158 pounds of food waste per person, 35 pounds of compostable paper per person, and 15 pounds of yard waste per person. And the good news of that is that's not really all that much material, and it could all be easily processed in 1 or 2 home compost bins. If you estimate approximately 500 pounds of material generated from a household, that would compost and reduce down to about 125 pounds of finished compost by the end of the year. And that could easily be used to spread on your garden, trees, shrubs, or even houseplants. So I call home composting a hyper-local solution we can all use to reduce or eliminate our organic waste stream. And I'm so glad to see so many of you municipalities are promoting this activity, because it's really, you can't beat it in terms of cost-benefit analysis, as well as the other benefits I talked about earlier. So it's great to see so much activity going on in Massachusetts. How did I get those numbers? Well, I'm going to gloss over this a bit because I don't have too much time, but these are the calculations I used. I used the draft solid waste master plan total disposed amount and the 2018 US Census Bureau for the population. And then I applied the percentages of the waste streams to those totals. I multiplied it by 48%, which is the amount of waste that's considered residential versus commercial. And that's how I got my per person per year amount. So what we find that on-site home composting can compost most compostable materials. As I said, you want to leave out the meat and dairy. So there's a little bit of food waste that wouldn't be suitable for home composting. But otherwise, your food waste works out per household to about 365 pounds per year. Compostable paper would vary, but it's 50 to 100 pounds per year. And yard waste ranges from 15 to 100 pounds per year. If you add those up, you get about 500 pounds a year per household. And that will vary, but that's kind of a good average number. And just by sheer awesomeness, the capacity of the compost bins on state contract can handle 500 to 1,000 pounds per bin per year. So that works out to a quarter of a ton to half a ton per year. The 2 bins have different capacities. The smaller one composts about 500 pounds a year, and the new age composter is larger and it can compost about 1,000 pounds per year. So if your community offers both types, you can use an average number of 750 pounds per year per bin, which is about 4/10, almost half a ton, when you're calculating your potential diversion rate. And then if you're wondering how many of those bins you distributed are actually being used, we did a survey when we first started this program and found that a year later, about 92% of people who purchased compost bins were using them a year later. So that's the use rate we use. So it works out to about 3.5 tons per year per bin distributed, because each bin is warranted for 10 years. They can actually last longer, but if you use 10 years as your total, you can estimate diverting about 3.5 tons of organic material per bin distributed. So when you do the cost benefit analysis, the compost bins cost $50 or $60 or $70 depending on the kind. And the instructions and administrative time for you to offer them, is fairly minimal. And then the benefits are 2.5 to 5 tons per bin distributed, diverted, and avoided disposal costs for that material. So if you pay $100 a ton for disposal, your investment is magnified by about 10 times with the amount if your cost is $100 a ton, or if your cost for putting, you're going to save, $500 and your cost may be $50 or $100. So it works out to be a great cost benefit analysis, as well as these other things that you're saving, including space at your municipal compost site. Because if you're running out of yard waste, room for yard waste at your compost site, then it's better if people compost their yard waste at home, save you some room. Produce these soil amendments and promote this lifelong sustainable waste management practice that will minimize waste disposal on an ongoing basis. So the compost bins that are available on state contract, this is state contract FAC 87. I'm sure most of you already are familiar with this. The New Age composter is the larger one. It holds about 24 cubic feet of material. The Earth Machine holds about 10 cubic feet of material. There's also a dual compost tumbler, which holds about 7 cubic feet of material for people who may not have a yard at all and want a completely enclosed system. That's another option. Now, what other resources do we have available to help you with your programs? As many of you know, we have a lot of educational materials on our website, Home Composting and Green Landscaping page. And that contains a wealth of materials that you're welcome to use, a webinar, videos, how to get a compost bin, posters, educational material, fact sheets on worm composting, fact sheets on how to teach residents about composting, and so on. So I hope you'll all take full advantage of all those materials. In addition, we have support for materials, as I said, the compost bins through state contract FAC 87. Compostable food serviceware is on state contract, the grocery 35 contract. Compostable liner bags are on state contract FAC 85. And free compost bins and worms for indoor composting are available free for schools through the Green Team program. We also have grants that support organics diversion through our Sustainable Materials Recovery grants. We have RDP credit given for municipal curbside, drop-off, and compost bin distribution programs. RDP funds awarded can be used for organics diversion equipment and projects. Small-scale initiative funding can also be used for these items. Food waste carts can help get a curbside food waste collection program going. And organics capacity projects are out there to help expand upon organics diversion capacity at compost sites. There's a few other sources of support. The Green Communities program, which is a energy-based program that your communities may be involved with, and there may be funding available there that could be used for organics diversion. And also the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness program, which focuses on climate change resiliency. So you may have angles you can use to leverage funding from these other sources as well. There are many videos on our website sites, as well as Connecticut's website and YouTube. So these are a few that I've picked out for you that are good. This is just an example of our easy to compost one-page handout that you can share with your residents. And this is why composting is easy. These are the critters that do all the work for you. You do 1%, they do 99%. So that's a good ratio. And that's about it. My contact information. So if you have,
that's fantastic. What a resource. And we're just so fortunate to have all of this information available on websites and videos. And as you were speaking, I was thinking it's such a great time to promote home composting because it's fall and we're seeing the leaves start to drop. And that's a great source of carbon, right, to get our bins going. And more people are working and going to school from home, and we're cooking more. So we have a lot of food scraps. So thank you so much. Janice, do we have any comments or questions in the chat box for Anne?
We do. So first of all, I want to just re-mention that the presentation will be made available and all of the links will be live when we send out Anne's, because it was chock full, but also in the chat box, in the chat, you can see the link to FAC 87 that was posted. A question for you, Anne, is there any concern with composting waxed cardboard when the wax is not biodegradable?
No, as far as I know, all wax cardboard is biodegradable. The only kind that's not is if it's actually plastic masquerading as wax. But as far as I know, I don't believe there's any concerns with wax cardboard composting.
Okay, and then I got a question from somebody who said, does anyone sell these compost bins at their transfer station or at town hall? I'm guessing, I mean, I think this is directed to everybody, but just as an answer to that, Lori Zabel also said, speaking of composting, the town of Air has lots of kitchen scrap buckets available. Boxes of 25 for 150 delivered. If interested, I can send a link. So check the chat box for that. But in terms of compost bins, is there anybody who on the call who wants to reply to that question?
We could actually save that for the open discussion if that's a little easier, Janice, when we open it up to everyone, unless you see that someone responds in the chat box right now.
Okay, yeah,
And
nobody has, so that's perfect.
Let me pipe up quickly here. We do have a list of who distributes these compost bins, and most of them are municipalities, and most of them are done distributed either at their transfer stations or their town halls or different methods. I've been in the process of updating that list. I'll have a new version up later today, actually. And it's really exciting to see all the municipal programs out there. So there are a lot of them. About 150, actually.
So Liz Bones said, I sell at town hall, but during COVID, I deliver to their house.
Oh, that's so nice.
Isn't that sweet? And then there was a question about using RDP funds to pay a vendor to pick up the food waste at a municipal transfer station. And Janine says, organics collection is an approved expense on the RDP approved expenses worksheet. That's all for now. There's another question, but I think it's better for the general discussion.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Janice. Thank you, Anne. That was terrific.
Thank you.
So we are going to launch a very quick poll right now asking if you know about the grants that DEP offers for diversion of organics. So I'm going to ask Todd to launch that next poll. Okay. I think we're close to being able to share results. We've got about 75% that have responded, so maybe we can close that and share the results. So yes, great. Most people know about the grants. We're very happy to see that. A few people didn't. And there, it looks like there are at least a few dozen that would like more information. So we also will be able to pull from the responses here who you are and what community you're from. So then the MACs will be able to follow up with you afterwards with more information about grants. So thank you for taking that poll. So now we're going to switch gears and talk about curbside collection of organics and food scraps. First up, we will have Juanita Trabert, who is the Sustainable Materials Management Director for the City of Newton. And one of her many duties includes oversight of the city's organics collection program. So Juanita, please take it away. And then just another reminder for folks to use the chat box for questions. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here. I also want to say that I am also on the board of directors for Mass Recycle. So thanks to Kathy for letting everyone know about our upcoming conference. So I will give some context. Sorry, next slide. So just for context, the city of Newton, it is directly west of Boston, or just a little to the southwest of Boston. Our population is just under 90,000. We have a total number of households, approximately 33,500. And of those, we service 28,500 with our residential curbside service. We also have a permanent year-round drop-off recycling center, and our city area is pretty big. It's 18 square miles, just for some context. Next slide, please. So the city of Newton was very interested in getting organics collection off the ground. We ran a pilot program, a small pilot program in 2018. Approximately 200 households participated in that program. And it was fairly successful. There weren't any kind of major issues. We were really trying to do some data gathering, gather perspectives of the people who participated. We also asked them if they were backyard composting, or kind of the motivations for wanting to do curbside service. We did some surveys in that pilot. We ran it for 4 months. And the cost was $10,000. So we wanted to scale that up and run a larger pilot. And this was kind of the concept of modeling it after what Cambridge did. When we sought to scale up the pilot, we wanted to run it for 1 year with 1,000 households. We got a couple of quotes from vendors that provide this service, and the lowest price was $3 per household per week. So scaling that up just cost-wise, that was $156,000 for the year. And then scaling that up if there wasn't an economy of scale. And that was part of the issue too. It was actually, there wasn't a vendor that was kind of really excited about scaling up to that number of households, and then certainly not being able to provide to the entire city. So essentially at that time, the service was deemed too costly to provide outright for the city. And we were left with a problem. If you want to just hit enter. So we were left with, how do we pay for organic service? And this was also at a time where we were beginning the discussion for our next curbside hauling contract. And we all know in 2018 that recycling pricing began to be renegotiated. So we were facing a lot of other increases in costs. Next slide, please. So the solution that our mayor proposed and that we eventually pursued was to contract for subscription service pricing on behalf of residents. So this was actually used by the city of Newton for its aggregated energy program a couple of years ago. And so our mayor basically said, let's try this model for subscription service for composting or for organics collection. The concept is to use volume purchasing power at the municipal level to negotiate pricing for at bulk, basically. We put out an RFP for curbside organics collection subscription pricing. We received one proposal back, and that was from Black Earth Compost. We went through the routine vetting process for a proposal from an RFP and approved Black Earth as our vendor for this contract. And they, in the contract, provide tiered pricing based on the number of active subscriptions in the city. Next slide, please. So this was the pricing that is in our contract. So the resident pays $39 for a starter kit, which includes a 13-gallon locking bin that they then own. And it comes with 2 rolls of compostable liners. One is a large size that fits the 13-gallon locking bin, and one is a small size that fits a countertop bin so that you take your little countertop bag out to your bigger bin. And everything is lined, and the goal is to eliminate the ick factor as much as possible. It is up to the resident to then purchase more compostable liners if they enjoy that system where they don't need to clean out a bin. And they can purchase those directly from Black Earth, or they can purchase them on their own from, online or Whole Foods or Trader Joe's. Then the pricing is provided in 6-month increments. That's just administratively less burdensome for Black Earth. They do provide a monthly rate, but it's a little bit higher. This was included in this rate schedule was in our contract. So it's around $60 for between 0 and 2,999 subscribers, which is where we fall right now. And I'll get to that in just a moment. And then, as you can see, it tiers down in pricing all the way down to $40 for 6 months of service if we were to get up to or over 7,500 subscribers. Next slide, please. So the really great thing about the preferred vendor partnership that we've created is that the city can actively promote the subscription service with the contracted vendor, and that we call it a preferred vendor just because they've been vetted by the city. Prevailing wage does not apply because it's a $0 contract to the city. So I know that that's an important factor in cost consideration for curbside service. The city receives data on the number of subscribers and kind of an estimated collected tonnage based on audits that Black Earth has previously done. Before COVID, we were also providing pickup points for the curbside compost bins, curbside organics collection bins at our city hall and at our recycling center. We didn't pay for the bins at all. We just served as a distribution point, which was beneficial to our vendor, and it kind of gave the city more skin in the game for the system. Since COVID has hit, the vendor has just been delivering the bins for people who sign up for new service. Next slide, please. So our results. We started this program almost a year ago. It launched in mid-October of 2019. At that time, we had about 400 subscription households before we partnered at the city level. So those were just private subscribers, as Black Earth had just been a private vendor prior to the city launching the RFP. By the time we partnered with Black Earth and then promoted it in a couple of ways last fall, a month later, we had 1,200 active subscriptions. So we saw a huge spike in growth, like almost right away. It was very clear that the demand was there for this, and that the price barrier was not too substantial for people to not participate. As of last week, Friday, we had 1,916 participants, approximately 5.7% of our total households. And actually, that number's already gone up to 1,934. So we've had another 16 people sign up in the last week, or even the last 5 days. And Black Earth has diverted a total of 374 tons of food waste in Newton since they began serving here. So that's even prior to partnering with the city. Next slide, please. So what we have on our docket next with this program is to continue spreading the word and growing our subscribers. Our goal is to reach 3,000 subscribers before the end of the year, which is where we would hit our next price reduction. Some of our marketing efforts have definitely been stifled this year by COVID and all of the bandwidth that it's taking up. So I don't know that we're going to hit that, but we're still going to try. And we have a couple of months left. We are also working to add 1 to 3 no-cost drop-off collection sites. We plan to launch a pilot drop-off collection program at our recycling center next month. And that is just to prevent there being any kind of basically to offer a no-cost option for our residents if the cost is a barrier to them. And there is also some discussion around the city providing kitchen scrap buckets to new subscribers, or maybe doing some type of short promotion, you know, for a month or two, where that's like the bonus to entice them to subscribe. We haven't hashed that out yet, but I anticipate next spring being able to do some type of effort like that. I think I have one more slide. Nope, I'm all done. So that is what our program looks like right now. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Juanita, for sharing that. Lots of great information. And I think there are some questions in the chat. So let me see, Janice.
Yep. So I just want to remind people that there are people who are chatting and asking questions, and you can feel free to answer those questions. They're about like bins and stuff. But does Newton charge a trash fee to residents for waste management? And if so, do you offer any rebates to households that sign up for composting?
So that's a great question. Right now, we do not have a fee structure or an out-of-pocket fee structure for residents. It's just out of the general fund, or, you know, really the DPW budget for our curbside service. It's certainly something that we are discussing and looking into and interested in doing. We actually plan to apply for a technical assistance grant to look at what our next step is for trash reduction. It's been 10 years since Newton put a cart system in place to have a limit, and a 64-gallon limit with weekly service. So we're certainly looking ahead. We just signed a new 5-year contract for our curbside service, and now we're looking at, for the next contract in 5 years, what could we do as far as like a big program change? And that's certainly something that we're interested in being able to provide, as some type of fiscal incentive to get people to subscribe for this service.
Next question was, can you explain the preferred vendor aspect a little more? i.e., the town would like to encourage the culture of composting, but we don't have the base to do a curbside program yet.
Yeah, so I mean, the term preferred vendor is a little unofficial. It's much more that the city has contracted with this vendor, the pricing that residents have available to them. So in this case with our RFP, I don't think that the pricing is actually currently different than what Black Earth offers for other municipalities. However, it's possible that they could raise their prices in the future, and our prices would be then locked into this contracted rate. The other thing is, because the city has vetted the vendor, just, you know, taking a look at, are they a sound company? Are they doing things, you know, according to existing laws? And, you know, can they basically be trusted? The city has gone through that process. And so now that we have signed a contract with them for that pricing, we're able to promote them and, you know, certainly advocate for this being a benefit, or kind of a service, and kind of promoting the benefits of composting. But the city doesn't have to, or the city is not, basically the fiscal model is that the city doesn't foot the bill for it. And so it's much more of an opt-in program right now, but we're able to promote it, as opposed to if it was just a completely private structure.
So this is about one of the slides 2 slides ago. So Todd, I don't know if you could go back. It says, please describe the receptacle in the second to last slide. Oops, where did it go? On the bottom middle of the slide, where would this be used?
Yeah, so I didn't touch base on that. We plan to just use carts at our recycling center, but what's shown there is like a pest-proof box that I've looked into, because I want to have food waste drop-off at City Hall, and I also want to put it at a park on the southern part of the city, just to try and geographically distribute them a little bit. So I've been looking into these bins, or these like it's basically like a housing for a bin. And I haven't executed on that yet, but I intend to, I would say early next year for those additional sites.
Okay, I think you just answered this, but somebody else wanted to know if it's animal proof.
I think so. I mean, that's like how it's marketed as being, they're actually, some of them are advertised as like bear boxes, and they're used at like parks in the West to prevent like bears from getting into the trash and things. I don't necessarily think we need something so heavy duty, but I am just sensitive to even something like a raccoon getting into it and then tipping it over if it was just like a cart that was sitting there, or even like, you know, vandalism or something along those lines. There's just some sensitivity around that happening at City Hall and needing to clean it up in the morning. So I'm just trying to be proactive in preventing that. It might be a little overkill, but I know that in Brookline for their 24-hour drop-off at, I think it's at a community center, that they have something like this. It's like a post office box where it has like the little pull-down door. So that's where I was interested in.
And then in the chats, there's also some information about housing, like for the Project Oscar in Boston and then Arlington. So people might want to check that out. Question is, does the subscription charge include curbside pickup? How often is it picked up? And then another person asked, how much do residents pay for compostable bags?
So Janice, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt for a sec. I think we're going to want to let Jillian do her presentation, and then maybe we can save some of these for the open discussion.
Oh, okay.
Our time is getting a little bit snug, so I just want to kind of respect everyone's schedule, but thank you. And I love the fact that there are so many questions here. But I'd love to let Jillian do her presentation, and then we will have time after that to hopefully get to as many of these as possible. And any questions that we're not able to answer today, we will capture what's in the chat box and respond through the minutes afterwards. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce Jillian Wilson-Martin. She is the Sustainability Coordinator for the town of Natick, and she oversees the curbside and drop-off organics programs. And we want to give her a little bit of time so we can learn how her program works. So thank you and welcome, Jillian.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I think you'll see that our story in many ways is similar to Newton's story, and that we are also doing curbside composting. I have a little curbside composting bin as a prop behind me. Todd, could you go to the next slide, please?
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Sorry, my watch is when I talk to us. So a few things for you to know about Natick. We're neighbors with Wellesley, who you spoke to earlier. And in Natick, we have about 34,000 people. We service about 10,500 households with our trash and recycling services. And that is all done in-house. We own our own trucks and employ drivers and laborers to do the collection. We have also been a pay-as-you-throw community since 2003. And we do a lot of other waste diversion programs. So we do the pink bag program. We also have a recycling center where people can drop off a number of different recycling materials. It's effectively a charm location that we have here in Natick. And in Natick, what we've done is really focus on what can we divert and where are the biggest opportunities. And a couple of years ago, using RDP money, we were able to complete a waste audit where we looked at what is in the trash bags that people are throwing away. And we hired a company to go through. We went through 150 trash bags for 2 weeks, so 300 or 150 households trash for 3 weeks. We visited each household, the same households twice. And we did that because on 1 week we collect, every week we collect trash, and every other week we collect recycling. We wanted to see if things were different in the different weeks. And what we found is shared here about what's in our trash bags, but you can see that about 40% or a little more were organics, meaning materials that could be composted. Next slide, please. And this made sense just because we've been hearing from residents for a long time about composting. And like I said, we took kind of a similar journey as Juanita in that we, in 2016, we had our own in-house compost pilot that we ran. We ran that with 500 households, and we were able to do that using some grant money from the state, but also money that came just through the capacity that we had in-house at the DPW. So we weren't able to fully fund it through the state grant. And we had a lot of people who wanted to participate in that couldn't get in, that weren't part of that first 500. And so we really wanted to expand, but we realized that the DPW couldn't really handle doing a lot more. And we didn't know what to do because we were not as proactive, I think, as Juanita's team in creating this preferred vendor option. So what happened here in Natick is a volunteer group formed. This was a grassroots volunteer group of largely women who organized, and they actually did this kind of almost their own procurement of vendors in the area that could replace the town. And they ended up essentially contracting, no official contract, but recommending Black Earth to residents. And through that, we were able to convert over 60% of people who were in that pilot, where they were essentially paying nothing for their compost to be picked up, to paying $2 a week with Black Earth to have that picked up. And now we're at about 900 residents who are participating in curbside composting, and 99.9% of them use Black Earth. And I wanted to flag for you that during the transition process of having the in-house program and what to do next, we did a lot of outreach to the people who were participants in the program and the pilot. And we had thought that switching to backyard composting would be a really great option. But if you look at the middle chart, the pie graph, people were really not supportive of that. They really appreciated the convenience of curbside composting. And they even weren't as excited about doing a drop-off program because that convenience factor was so important to them. Next slide. So the strategy that we took was that we wanted to make compost available to everyone. And so we're offering 3 different ways for people to participate right now. We have our curbside program, which I talked about. The one thing I didn't mention is that we do provide a free starter kit. The way it works right now for us is that Black Earth and vendors who do composting in our area, they will let us know if they have a customer, and the DPW will deliver a free curbside bin and a free kitchen countertop bin. We require residents to use certified compostable bags for their compost. That's something Black Earth wants residents to do. So what we do is we make those bags available at cost through our pay-as-you-throw vendors. So we have grocery stores in town and convenience stores that we partner with to sell our blue pay-as-you-throw bags. And they now are also selling these green compostable bags at cost. So it's almost a 50% discount from what residents would pay if you bought them at like Target, for example. And right now we are running this small campaign where we're providing $10 off a yearly subscription to anyone who signs up for an annual composting collection program. Our backyard program, we do sell the backyard bins for $25 each. We host trainings for those, and we do use our RDP funds to help us pay for those. And then we have our drop-off program, which is actually right outside my window, and we do have a container, kind of like Juanita showed, that is supposed to be bear-proof, so hopefully also rat-proof. It's a metal container, and right now we have about 25 people who participate in it. Black Earth does the collection for it. We had previously done the collection in-house, but one thing I've noticed about that is Black Earth, they often leave another container there, and people use that, and there's no lock on that, and we haven't really had any problems, and it's not a metal container either. So just something to note. And we did use our RDP funds to purchase that container. Next slide. So I just feel like it's been a long journey, but we've learned a lot of interesting things along the way. And the thing for me that I think is most fun about composting is just how happy it seems to make residents in Natick. I live in Natick and I compost, and I guess it brings me some level of joy, but I just, whenever residents talk to me, they are always bringing up how great it makes them feel to compost their food waste. I also think it's interesting how much residents are willing to pay for that convenience factor of curbside composting. You can see that pie chart on the right. And then we've even heard that some residents share their curbside bin with their neighbors. So we've tried to come up with ways for there to be buddy bins that people could have when the cost is prohibitive to some, and see if that's possible. And then finally, we historically have gotten a shipment or a load of compost delivered to our recycling center that comes from the residents' compost, or comes from Black Earth, or previously it used to come from the town of Needham. We had partnered with them to have them process our composting when we did it in-house. And we let the people who are in the curbside composting program know about it, and they just really enjoy getting that free compost. And Black Earth, at least, they also send a coupon to residents to get a free bag of compost through different vendors, and that seems to be very popular. And I think that's it. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Jillian. I think we've all learned so much today. We have about 12 to 15 minutes, and we can ask questions of Jillian and then do an open discussion. So first, why don't we see if there are a couple questions explicitly for Jillian, and then I'm going to ask Todd to basically close out the presentations and turn everyone's camera on in just a couple of minutes. So Janice, do we have any questions that are for Natick?
Well, one question I think you probably could answer. So meat and dairy products were a no for composting at home, but are they, can they go in a curbside mix?
Yes, so in Natick, and I think most curbside vendors do allow for meat and dairy products. And at our drop-off container, we also allow for meat and dairy. I know that in Arlington, at least previously, they did not allow for meat and dairy at their drop-off. So I think that sometimes varies by community. But yes, when it's commercially composted, it's fine to include.
I did get a question. So are both EcoSafe and BioBags offered for sale at retailers, and how much are they?
Only the EcoSafe bags are offered at retailers right now in Natick. You can buy, I noticed a lot of retailers also sell BioBag. We did a survey of residents who were in the compost program, and they much preferred EcoSafe bags. We had started actually using BioBags when we launched our pilot, and we had some problems with those bags, but you could use either. As long as they're BPI certified, it's fine for our program.
Do you know about how much they cost?
Yeah, we sell 60 bags for, I think it's $3.
And then somebody asked, how did you get your cost so low per bin?
I think it's a volume question. So kind of like Juanita was saying. So we, when Black Earth first came to Natick, again, they kind of took over the pilot program in a way, and they immediately had over 500 residents participating. So they were able to get to that number pretty quickly.
The last question was, how does the $10 per year discount work for residents?
So it's a one-time discount, and it was for new composters. And basically the way that we worked it out is we shared information with residents, and we said, if you want to try composting, now's a great time. We've actually seen a pretty big uptick in people subscribing, not only since we offer this incentive, but also I think with a lot of people being home, they're seeing the Black Earth trucks around town a lot. And so it's kind of some good advertising for Black Earth. And so if you sign up with Black Earth will automatically just bill the town for the $10. And if you sign up with another vendor, unfortunately, no other vendor is currently registered with our Board of Health for the curbside collection of compost. But if someone signed up with another vendor, we encourage them to bring their receipt to us, and we'll give them the $10.
So this could be a question for either you or Juanita. If there are contract issues between your service provider and a household, would the city get involved? For example, if they missed a pickup
So I can just share that for Natick, we just try to help. So it's really ultimately between the resident and Black Earth, or if they were working with someone else. I have had, what's nice about having a relationship with a vendor is that since we're providing these free starter kits, they'll let us know if for some reason a resident didn't get theirs when it was expected. And so I'll check in with our sanitation department about that. And then I can remind residents if they email me about a missed pickup, you know, hey, like you need to contact Black Earth about it, and just remember it comes at a different time than the DPW trucks because this is a different company. So I find it's just about helping more than anything.
And I think that one of you answered this, but I'll just ask again. Does the vendor allow those subscribed to receive a certain number of compost back, or is all the compostable material kept by Black Earth? I think you said that they'd get one free bag.
Yeah, historically they've provided, I've personally used Black Earth. I live in Natick, and they send a postcard that's a coupon that you can use at a local garden store to get your compost, your free bag of compost. And then, but it's not, I don't know if that's guaranteed forever that they do it that way. And I saw a question about if we operate Black Earth composting facilities in Natick. We don't have any registered compost facilities in Natick right now, though we do have a large farm in Natick that we are interested in seeing if that might be a possibility to help them develop that capacity, because one of the challenges that I think we have in Metro West is that the haulers who collect compost have to drive so far to manage it. And so that just adds to our costs.
Okay, so switching gears, I don't see any more questions for related to Newton and Natick, but this one goes back to Kathy and or Anne. And the question was about restaurants composting. She says, you don't mention restaurants. I don't know if our local restaurants compost. I understand they don't. That's a huge amount of food waste going in the trash. Who wants to talk about the commercial waste? Anne. I think you're on mute, Anne.
I'm sorry. Where's my?
You're good. You're on.
Oh, am I on now? Sorry. We didn't mention restaurants because we were focusing on the residential waste stream today. But there's a program called Recycling Works in Massachusetts that provides technical assistance to restaurants and other businesses. And we definitely do promote composting by restaurants and businesses. So we can provide information on contact information for Recycling Works. They actually have a hotline, and you can just go to recyclingworksma.org and get that. I'll type it into the chat.
Excellent. And so Janice, what I'd love to do right now is, since you turn the presentations off and the cameras are on for everybody so we can see people, I think we have maybe five minutes, maybe a few more at most, to just have kind of this open discussion. We have one final poll that we wanted to share to kind of get a pulse on what your communities might need to move the needle on food waste diversion and collection if you're not already doing it. So I'm going to ask Todd to launch the last poll and to please check all that apply here. You know, the idea here is to think we've heard a lot today from these different program models, and surely there are other types of models out there too, but really what do you need so that when we go to our breakout sessions in a couple of minutes, we can talk to you about maybe what DEP and Max can do to help you get there. So let's see, about half folks have responded, so we'll give you another 10-15 seconds here to fill this in. Okay, I think we're probably close enough, Todd, if we want to close this. And it looks like program costs take the cake, is a primary issue that these communities have as to how to maybe coordinate and make these programs happen. We've also got questions about hauling service. It looks about half of the folks here asked about hauling. About a third asking about grants and funding or offsite locations or outlets to process organics. A few others mentioned time commitment and technical support. Oh, and down below, it looks like another third mentioned an optimal town location to process organics on site because of considerations they may have for either odors, health concerns, proximity to residential dwellings, hours of operation, or what have you. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but this gives us, I think, some really good feedback as to where we can direct some of our attention to help you move the needle. So thank you for that. We can close that poll out. And I think before we switch to the breakout rooms, why don't we look to see if we have just maybe a couple more questions that might go to the whole group while we have everyone online. If Janice could let us know if we have a few more.
No, I think we got to all of them.
Are we pretty good? Yeah. Okay. Well, boy, our timing is fantastic. So, what that poll can do is actually lead us into these discussions that we'd like to have now. So we wanted to close the meeting for those who are not municipal or state attendees. Todd has gone ahead and pre-assigned all municipalities to the breakout rooms based on your MAC district. So please stay on the line and join us for a MAC district discussion. There's going to be a little pop-up that comes on your screen so you'll know what's happening, and it takes a couple of seconds to kind of move you into a meeting room. So there'll be a brief pause there, but that'll allow us to talk as a district with communities in our area about any local issues. Just so you know, we won't be recording the breakout rooms. The Zoom does not have that function that we know of. And we won't be coming back to the larger group after we go to the breakout room. So you can take the time with your neighboring communities in the MAC, and then the MAC can close out those sessions when they see fit. So I want to thank all the speakers for fantastic presentations today, and asking folks to stay on as we transition to breakout rooms. So thank you all.